Hello and welcome to the book group. This is the very first in a series of podcasts by me, William Shaw. Every day in pubs and clubs and front rooms up and down the country, hundreds of people are meeting to discuss books. The book group is one of the biggest cultural phenomena of our time. But all this largely goes on in private, so every fortnight what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to gate crash a different book group. It's about 6:30 on a Monday night, and I've travelled up from Brighton on the train, and I'm in Soho in London, just walking up Greek Street towards a pub called the Dog and Duck. In the 50s, this area would be the haunt of people like Brendan Behan and what's his name? Dylan Thomas. And I started to work in Soho in about 1984. I started working for a magazine called Smash Hits in Carnaby Street. And there was sort of like ghosts of that around here. Jeffrey Bernard still used to drink in the Coach and Horses not far from here. And here, just at the corner of Bateman Street, the Dog and Duck are milking this for all they're worth. As you just go inside, on the right of the side door, there's a sign that reads, "It has been well documented that the world-famous English novelist George Orwell drank in the Dog and Duck." And I'm here to meet members of a remarkable organisation called the North London Reading Group. And it's easy to tell where they're sitting because there are 3 tables with signs saying reserved from 6:15 p.m. on them. The group was founded almost exactly 10 years ago, and the 2 founders, Paul Drinkwater and Dawn Barnes, are sitting at one of the tables. First, I talked to Dawn.
Yes, I've been involved with it for 10 years in London, and I actually was a member of a book group in Oxford, where I'd moved there from the northwest of England, and I didn't know anybody, and I had a job, but I wasn't really your work colleagues can be a bit different to your social colleagues, and I joined a reading group, and I think I went to that on its second ever meeting, and then I think 3 or 4 years later I moved to London, and Paul had also moved to London, and neither of us really knew anybody again apart from work colleagues, so we thought we'd set up a reading group, and we thought one group, and I think it was July or August 2007, so we're just over 10 years old now in London.
Like Dawn, it was a case of moving to London. London's a big place. I think I underestimated the move and the effect on my social life, so I guess I missed what I had in Oxford. I think also it was at the height of free sheet mania in London, so there were, as well as the Metro which should exist, there were free B papers being handed out in the evening, and they were just dreadful. They still are dreadful. You could just feel your brain turning to mush. So I think part of it was to make me not read those dreadful showbiz rags and read books and discuss those with like-minded people in London.
And Paul builds websites and does lots of technical stuff, and lots of people got in touch, wanted to join a reading group. So we ended up setting up several reading groups, and we still set up reading groups each year.
I suspect I'm going to be discovering over the coming weeks that the people who keep these book groups going are nearly always pretty remarkable people. Dawn's certainly not an exception if that's the case. In her day job, she's a communications worker, but she's also a Lib Dem politician. In 2010, she stood as a parliamentary candidate against the Prime Minister David Cameron, but didn't win, obviously, which is probably fortunate because otherwise she wouldn't have had time to run not only this group, but the many others that have sprung out of the North London Reading Group.
In addition to the fiction groups, which there are about 20 of, we have a 19th century novel group, we have a Shakespeare group, we have a graphic novel group, and a sci-fi group. Did I say that one? Yes. And we did have a politics group for a while, but that fell by the wayside and could be restarted. So yes, we have quite a few groups.
Created a monster.
Yes, we've created a monster. There's one woman, Anita, who's a member of about 5 or 6 groups. I have no idea how she finds the time to read all the books for those. But what she does is she tends to kind of guide them to choose books that she's already read. And each reading group has its own kind of rules So our group, we tend to stick to fiction. We try to avoid the classics because lots of people think they've read them, but that's how the 19th century novel group was born, because actually you haven't read as many as you think. So that's a quite specialist group. So we stick to fiction. We try to stick around the 400-page mark, so that if you pick a real awful book, then 100 pages a week isn't too much for somebody to deal with, and they can read something else on the side. So we've broken that rule this month with Midnight's Children, and I chose Midnight's Children because it's 70 years since partition, and I just thought it would be a different way to theme the choosing of a book. And we've never had any Rushdie in this group in 10 years.
Just as a rough guess, how many people do you think have passed through over the 10 years?
We must have had over 1,000 people get in touch over that period of time, and they'll be on the mailing list. Some of them would have opted out. We see more people coming through in January when they make New Year's resolutions to find a reading group, but I would say about 1,000 people in total.
Yeah, we've got a mailing list of about 1,500 people now. Not all of those want to join a reading group. Some are just interested, for whatever reason, in the newsletters that we send out once a month. Did you mention Bookstock? I can't remember.
No.
Yeah, so one of the first things that we did when we suddenly realised, almost by accident, we had about 5 or 6 book groups, was we created something called Bookstock.
Bookstock turns out to be their own mini literary festival.
So we started getting authors get in touch with us saying, please read our book. And obviously we can't read everyone's book, and so we thought, what can we do about this? So we rented a room above a pub, not dissimilar to this one, and we just invited 5 or 6 new authors and got them to just read read excerpts from their novels to a packed room of people getting slowly more inebriated. Almost like a stand-up comedy night, but with authors, and that was just something I could never have seen myself doing, but we kind of
I was going to ask
what
books you discovered. Was there any author you discovered through meeting them?
I'd say so. A personal favourite of mine is a guy called Christopher Fowler, and he's one of those people that just should be so well known. But he's almost like one of the best kept secrets, I think, of London authors. So I think he's definitely an author and also a brilliant personality as well. He has a very wry sense of humour, lovely guy, incredibly entertaining, and writes really brilliant books.
The Bryant and May.
Yeah, the Bryant and May series, but he also branches off and does other things as well. So personally, he's someone I always keep an eye on.
I was going to say, Christopher Fowler actually wrote us our own short story once that he wrote on a Saturday afternoon, and he came along to do our Christmas party, which we traditionally have in January because everybody's got too many parties in December and January is miserable. And he wrote this story for us, and there were people that were there just because they love Christopher Fowler, and he was just throwing the papers to the floor, and there was a bit of a fight for it at the end, and somebody got those papers. But we've had Matt Haig come and do events with us, who is now probably well beyond a Bookstock. Essie Fox, I think, has published her second novel recently. And then, so we've had writers that have gone on to be on the Waterstones tables.
Ross Raisin is another great author who I think we discovered through around Bookstock. He wrote a fantastic novel called God's Own Country, not related to the film that's out at the moment, but a great, quite creepy Catcher in the Rye-esque novel about a stalker on a farm in Yorkshire. So he's someone we've been fortunate enough to have read for us, who's gone on and become much more well known.
As it heads towards 7 o'clock, other members of the group start to arrive.
I've been upstairs. Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm not too bad.
I am William. I'm lurking in here.
You must be Hugh.
I am,
Oh,
yes.
I'm Tricia.
Hi.
How do you do?
Patricia is tonight's host. She's the one who booked the tables here tonight.
Everybody takes a turn. So the idea is that you buy the first. Is my understanding is that you buy the first drink, and then you buy some snacks or whatever, and then everyone else buys their own.
How did you find out about this then?
The website in January.
Oh, okay.
My New Year's resolution.
You're one of the ones, was it?
Yep.
What were you doing in January that made you want to find a reading group?